Hello. I'm looking at a video where they're talking about, I think it's Nick Jones's YouTube channel, where he's talking about inside the extravagant lives of mega rich pastors. I just want to say this, and I'm not saying this for people not to give their tithes and sow their seeds in their church homes or in a church. But I'm saying this because it needs to be said. Because I had to, maybe like 3 weeks ago, ask someone who I look up to and who I trust to tell me the truth. And I call her my spiritual mother. I asked her because it was on my mind to not give my tithe and my offering or sow my seed at church. It came in my spirit to give it to the people on the street that are in need. So I'm saying this because a lot of times when we're going to a church, we feel obligated to give to them when they're asking, which I feel like if we're going to a church and we're a member of a church, we should contribute to the upkeep of the church. Yet at the same time, I feel like we can also give our tithes and sow our seeds, not just in our church, but in those who are in need that are not in our church. Because we are the church. Like, we are the church. We are what make up the church. So a lot of pastors are put in places of leading us, and as they grow, as God allows them to grow, some churches' heart posture ends up contaminated by the things that maybe they see other people having and they want, or just their flesh starting to, I don't know. All I know is you don't have to give your tithe to a church. You can find somebody on the street who is in dying need or desperate need of something, and the same 10% that you were going to give your church, you can sow that seed or give that money to that person in need, and know that God honors it just as well as He would honor you giving it to that church. And those who are worried about the churches trying to come up on them giving to them, you don't have to worry about that, because that person on that street who is in need 9 times out of 10 don't even know who you are. So you don't have to worry about them trying to make a get rich quick scheme by making it seem like they're going to keep coming back and back to you to get you to give them this. No, you're giving someone the help that they deserve and that they need. And I know a lot of people have something to say about the panhandlers, like you don't know whether they're real or whether they're fake. The thing about that, because there are some fake ones out there, and you don't know who's out there asking for money and who's turning around getting in a BMW going to their house. Ask God for discernment to know. And if you do end up giving somebody some money because your heart wants to help them, once you give that person that money, and that goes for a person on the street or your pastors in a church house, once you give your 10% or whatever money that the Lord has placed on your heart to give, maybe I should say that over. Because if the Lord put on your heart to give somebody something, it's for the exact reason that it's being taken in for. God not going to tell you to give your money to somebody that's going to try to come up off of you or do you wrong. So if you end up giving your 10% to somebody trying to help them, or just giving your 10% to a church, once you give that money to them, if they choose to do something that is not of God or out of God's will for what He planned for them to do that money with, that is then between them and God. You have done what you're supposed to do with giving your 10%. And if somebody who you gave your 10% to chooses to go and put gas in their car or look to get a better house or what have you, take somebody out to eat, and you know you didn't gave your 10% and you don't have nothing to eat, it's just a lot of things, and this world is so messed up because you don't know who to trust. But that's why we go to God and we ask God, should we do this? Should we do that? You ask Him for the discernment to know what it is you should and should not do, who it is you should and should not associate with. But even when you do out of kindness of your own heart, do things like helping people or just doing what it is that you know God has asked you to do, as far as giving your 10%. Once you do what you're supposed to do, if those people who take this money go and do the wrong things with this money or fleshly things with this money to satisfy their needs and their lifestyle, they then have to answer to God. But I just wanted to make this video because I wanted people to understand that you don't have to take your 10% or your seed offering to a church house for God to honor your 10%, your first fruit. You can take your first fruit that you give at the beginning of every year, or you can take your 10% of whatever you make and your seed offering, and you can go and give to a homeless family on the street, and God will still honor that the way He will honor it if you were giving it to the church. That's all I wanted to say.